right, live from beautiful downtown Southern Maryland, it's time for Gears of Resistance episode number 17 for the 30th of October, 2017. 2015. Gosh, that's 2 years in the future, 2017. Why is 2017 on my mind? Anyway, we are a bi-weekly podcast dedicated to bringing you the latest and greatest in open source hardware news, tips and tricks for doing tinkering with electronics, and some advice on running a business based on open source hardware every now and then. Something like that. Really don't know what this podcast is about, to be honest with you. Anyway, so this week's going to be just more kind of a couple news stories. I've got no really words of wisdom this week because I've pretty much tapped that well, I think. I will, let's start off here, though. I am going to ask for some support. Let me see if I can bring this up. All right, so next Saturday, November 7th, is Game Day 2015. And so what is it? It's brought to us by an organization called Extra Life. And the idea is it's a charity. It's a fundraising activity where gamers will spend 24 hours playing games online to help raise money for charity. 100% of the proceeds go to various children's hospitals around the country. I'm personally playing for Johns Hopkins Children's Center since Johns Hopkins is where I went to school. So with that, we're looking to raise a couple bucks. So if you head over, I'll have links to it. You can sign up. You can either sign up to join a team and play as well for 24 hours and may have your own donation page. Or you can go ahead and donate. You know, if it's a $1, $5, $10, whatever you can spare. Again, all that money, 100% of it goes to, in my case, Johns Hopkins Children's Center. And from there, you can read all about it. There's some videos explain what it is Extra Life about, and how they operate. So it would be awesome if we could raise a couple bucks. I think we've raised a couple bucks already, but a couple more, again, for a good cause. That is the Children's Miracle Network hospitals around the country. And they treat, I think they say here, they treat thousands of children every year. And they do so regardless of the family's ability to pay. So this is a way to kind of help the hospitals pay for those bills. And they do everything. So, you know, these are kids facing cancer, cystic fibrosis, and then, you know, injuries just from accidents because, well, kids are kids. So it's going to be powered by, I guess, Twitch, which is, I think I'll broadcast from there for the 24 hours. I think it starts, if I recall correctly, in years past, it usually started at like 8 a.m. Saturday and ran till 8 a.m. Sunday. But I will check and verify and put that out. So anyway, on with the news. All right, first story, the Orange Pi, which is a new single board computer that's looking to challenge the Raspberry Pi. And it's got some pretty good specs. It's got built-in Wi-Fi, micro SD, an infrared receiver. There is, I believe, 4 USB ports, HDMI out, a microphone. What else is on there? A SATA interface, so you can, I think you can attach up to, I think, a 2 terabyte hard drive. Gigabit Ethernet, and it's all powered by a ARM Cortex A7 quad-core CPU. I think there's on board, it's got a gig of DDR RAM and I think 8 gigs of flash memory. What else did I remember reading? Oh, it's compatible. It's going to run RasPi, just like the Raspberry Pi, or Android. So that's pretty cool. And you're probably asking yourself, how much does this cost? Well, apparently it's going to be sold for $39, $39. Basically, the computer I bought like 4 or 5 years ago for a couple $100 can now be had for $39, which is pretty cool. I'm trying to see who's making this. Obviously, it's a group that's, I guess, similar. I don't know if it's I don't know if they're academically backed like Raspberry Pi, or if this is a I think this is kind of like a Chinese company that's taking the concept of the Raspberry Pi and kind of adding their spin. And of course, you just can't beat the pricing of getting stuff manufactured in China. So, where I don't know if you can really even get it anywhere else. So anyway, check that out if you're curious. I don't know when are they shipping now? Last time I checked, they weren't shipping yet. Let's see, AliExpress. Yeah, I guess so. They're shipping 892 orders. Oh wow, I got $2 off anything over $2. So price is $39 and shipping is $3.85 to the US, and delivers within 5 to 15 days. And it says it ships out within 7 days. So, it's probably the normal 2 to 3 weeks. But for $39 for 42 with shipping for a pretty friggin' awesome computer, seems like it's a pretty good deal. All right, next story. There's yet another new Arduino out, the Arduino 101. It's the first Arduino product, first Arduino product to be powered by Intel's Curie system-on-a-chip module. I think they announced this earlier this year or last year at one of their maker fairs. So basically, it is a CPU, but it also has built-in Bluetooth Low Energy, a 6-axis accelerometer and gyroscope, and something called an accelerator. I thought they meant accelerometer until they said accelerometer later. They're saying an accelerator for gesture recognition. So that's actually the CPU, the brain of the computer, or of the microcontroller, which would probably be that chip there, big boy in the middle. But it also then comes in just the normal Arduino Uno kind of form factor that we're all used to. So the idea is this is the prototype board, like a lot of Arduinos are, but it's got definitely a lot more horsepower than the old venerable Uno. And once you've prototyped and breadboarded up a concept, you'll be able to potentially manufacture a much smaller board with just the Curie chip in a product. So something like a wearables product or some sort of Internet of Things. Obviously, with an accelerometer and gesture recognition, it is kind of geared towards more of the wearables, physical computing kind of projects. So if you're curious, I think, yeah, $30. So this one, about the same for most of these Arduinos in this type of form factor. So yeah, and I think overseas it's being sold under the Genuino. I'm not sure I'm a fan of that title. The Genuino 101 brand. Thank you, copyright issues and laws. All right, next story. Anthony Bourdain. So unless you've been living in Iraq under the past probably 10 years or so, Anthony Bourdain has done a bunch of series on various networks, usually around either food, chefs, restaurants. I think lately they've kind of broadened out to just kind of more travel in general. With that, he's kind of even making it spreading his, after a while, there's only so many times you can travel to different big cities in the world. And So many good restaurants. So he's got a new, I guess it's a one-line video. It's a web-only video series called Raw Craft. And it's going to, the initial run is 6 episodes long, which again, you can watch them on YouTube, which is pretty cool. And the idea of Raw Craft is he's going to be traveling the world, but this time he's going to be talking to people that make stuff, artisans, that do things by, make things by hand, the old way. So it's a cool premise. It definitely fits with the maker attitude. Real quick, I'll run through the episodes. So the first episode is called The Burrow Furnace. He's going to talk to some folks that make iron skillets by hand. Then there's Frank Shattuck. He's apparently a tailor, and what does they say here? Well, it just says he's a tailor, so I'm assuming it's a clothing. Perhaps he makes clothes. I don't know. You'll have to find out. Steve Goodson, he makes saxophones. Bob Kramer makes kitchen knives. Episode 5, Arion Press. He is still making old style printing presses, so that make I guess he makes handcrafted and books using the more traditional older kind of printing presses. Gutenberg would be happy. And then the last one is called Dufftown, which I can only think is looks like they're a whiskey distillery. So that probably would be a very popular episode. So anyway, check it out. Raw Craft with Anthony Bourdain. I think this could potentially be a really cool. I've been thinking about it. It'd be really cool to do something similar, but kind of like visit all the maker spaces around the world and see what are do different maker spaces have different focuses because of where they exist in the world, and what kind of things do they tackle based on where they're at. So anyway, Raw Craft, Anthony Bourdain, check it out. All right, here's another cool story. As we all know, we're about a month out from Star Wars The Force Awakens, and this is kind of a little nod to makers and people that kind of do the cosplay, do it yourself lightsabers, and how good they've gotten over the last couple of years. Apparently for filming in The Force Awakens, the lightsabers they used were basically slightly customized versions of the stuff that the Force FX lightsabers that you can buy. So Force FX is kind of like premium brands, but again, what the point was is that because they're so good, because these things that were, they're not made by the Hollywood production crews, they kind of did a commercial off the shelf buy, and what they're able to do is use those lightsabers because they give off a nice glow. So when they're doing post production, instead of having to go back in and they still added they rotoscoped the actual lightsaber, but the glow that was cast on the actors, they didn't have to put that in because they just relied on the glow that the Force FX lightsabers were casting off. So they were able to get a nice visual without having to do a lot of post-production that they would have done perhaps in the past. Because if you look at least from what I recall of Star Wars over the years, lightsaber battles have always been kind of, except for Return of the Jedi at the end, the lightsabers always kind of been in kind of brightly lit situations. But the more darker look of Force Awakens, I think having a natural ambiance with the lightsaber light, I think does look really good. And though you could have probably done that with special effects afterward, I think A, it helps the actors get into the role more. B, it just probably does look a little bit better and heck of a lot easier to deal with, just rotoscoping the blade and then not having to do any of the other lighting effects. So anyway, point of the whole story to bring up is it's pretty cool that makers are getting so good at what their craft that they can be used in professional situations, and that's that. Boom, boom, boom. So every 3 years here in the U.S., the Library of Congress updates exemptions for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act under its DRM circumvention walls. So though DCMA needs to just be repealed in general, until then, it is good to see that every couple of years they listen to the nation and industry and people and make certain exemptions of things that if you do it, you're not technically violating DCMA. So things like ripping DVDs and Blu-rays to make fair use remixes, preserving video games and running multiplayer servers after publishers have abandoned them, jailbreaking cell phones, tablets, and other portable devices so that they can run third-party software, 3D printing, security research and modification and repairs on your personal cars were all accepted. There was some devil in the details that thankfully the EFF, Electronic Frontier Foundation, has done a good job of laying that out. So we'll post the link in the show notes. But again, nothing's perfect. Government is a slow by design, and at least though we are slowly kind of taking away the unintended consequences that the DMCA kind of violated fair use in a lot of ways, and we're slowly kind of correcting that. So if you're interested, what's changed with the DMCA, you can check out the link from EFF. All right. Gosh, many years ago, probably back 10, 15 years ago, ran across a site called allaboutcircuits.com, which had a pretty good tutorial. It was kind of like an ebook on the web of learning about circuit design, learning about electronics. Here recently, though, they've had, it looks like, a pretty major overhaul of their website. So whereas before it was kind of, there was a forum, but the actual articles or the book itself was kind of separate. They've kind of revamped themselves, and they have a really good projects page. They have a really good articles page, forums, blog posts. So if you haven't checked out All About Circuits in a while, it's probably something you should. It's a pretty good resource now. Not that it wasn't before, but now it's got that little bit of extra. Yeah, I would just say check it out. They've got some social media links now too, so that's got to be good, right? Right, next story. MIT launches their Solve conference. They hope that it becomes the beginning of a global movement. So kind of like the TED Talks. MIT is looking to start up a conference again called Solve, which is focusing on, quote, bringing experience and inspired people together to solve some of the world's most challenging problems. The inaugural event, which has a full program that will span 4 days, is hopes to attract students, technologists, philanthropists, business leaders, policymakers, and more to discuss technology and innovation and policy issues. Solve must, to participate in Solve, people must either be researchers working on breakthrough technology or philanthropists sorting social entrepreneurs. So that's kind of researchers. Does that mean they're limiting this to the academic world? Because a lot of the innovation in the world is not happening in academic institutions or big companies or government. More and more, it's these real innovation. My personal opinion is happening in the garages and the maker spaces. And not to say that there's not big stuff happening at the other institutions, but seems kind of a little narrow-minded. I guess it depends on who they define as a researcher. just my limited experience in the world of academia is researchers tends to mean PhD or something like that. So anyway, if you're interested, want to learn more, we'll share the links on Solve, and then there's the links to the actual conference itself. I'm trying to see when are they planning to have it. I don't know if it's here. Let's click on their actual link here. Boom, 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 boom. Join us and change the world. Yep. Oh, I guess it already happened. October 5th through the 8th of this year. So I will do some scouring and I'll see if they do something like TED Talk and put the videos, if they record videos of their talks and put those up. So I thought this had not happened yet, but apparently it already has. All right, last story. A new product. I'm not sure if it's open source officially, but it was so cool that I kind of, I guess, will make an exception if it's not. It's a product and a service called Outernet. And it's basically for $100 you get this little box, and it's not really intended for the developed nations. It is meant for more developing nations. But the idea is to kind of give everyone who's not on the internet, the 50% plus of the world population that's not on the internet, at least the read-only access to internet. Kind of like the way they kind of describe it is, imagine it's like going to the public library. So it's it's a little step back in some ways, but in other ways it's a huge step forward. So whereas the internet, we're in Web 2.0 and 3.0, we're very accustomed to interacting with the internet, right? Where it's a social media experience, it's a two-way conversation. But if you remember back in the 90s, a lot of us weren't making content for the internet. We were simply receiving. We were it was a one-way communication. We would surf the web and just read what was out there. Well, Outernet, if you take a satellite dish, kind of like what you would have from Dish TV, this little black box that then puts out a Wi-Fi signal, and there's it's a curated experience but now people from all around the world who don't have the fiber optic runs, who don't have the internet service providers, but because they live on planet Earth, they're blanketed under a bunch of satellites. They can now at least get some data and benefit from the internet, again, in a way kind of like a lot of us experienced in the 90s, where it was read-only. But still, the argument is that's still better than nothing, right? And that's always something that a lot of times technologists and engineers have a hard time getting their head around, is that you want to have the perfect solution. Well, sometimes you don't need the perfect solution. Sometimes you need the good enough solution. And this seems to be a pretty friggin' awesome thing. So the other cool thing about it is that you can become a kind of distributor. So if you sign up with Outernet, then you can kind of and sell. You can get, so basically it's discounts, right? 15% discount if you buy 10 or more. Then you get marketing materials. They call it their beta partner level. They have something called an emerging partner level, which is, again, you order 100 of these. They're calling the devices that you buy are called lighthouses. So it's basically, that's the box. Again, you have to hook it up to a satellite dish. Again, something you would see with Dish TV. But then it puts out a Wi-Fi signal, and there's a couple other little nuances, things like how much data you can get every day. But I think, let me see where am I? Complimentary 30% discount. So yeah, so it looks like, so what varies at each different level is you get a little bit more data. You get deeper discounts on the per unit price. And then they're granting exclusivity. So again, the idea is you become a distributor for them. So if you buy, so I guess their big state, the core partner, you buy 1,000 units, and what they'll do is they will make sure that you have exclusive rights to sell your 1,000 units within your I don't know how they define it, within 50 miles, 100 miles. You get to kind of be the sole provider of Outernets for a certain time. So anyway, if you're interested, it's outernet.is. And again, we'll put the links up in there, but it seems like it's a pretty cool idea. It does harken back to kind of like the old curated, kind of like Yahoo of old, where you relied on people to kind of curate what got sent, because you only have so much data you can send up to the satellite, and that defines what experiences, what people have their experience with the internet or the outernet or whatever you want to call it. Yes, it's a little bit hampered compared to what most of us understand the internet to be. But again, when you realize that 50% of the world plus doesn't even have access at all, sometimes getting started doing something like Outernet is definitely a step in the right direction. And I will end my rant with that. So, boom, 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 boom. I think that's it. Yeah, that was the last story for the week. So again, this was kind of more of a news story episode. Next week, we'll try to maybe get back into some more, maybe a tutorial or something. I've got some projects I'm working on. I think I'm getting to the point where I can start to share a little bit. So with that, head over to gearsofresistance.com. We'll put links to everything we talked about. Big thing, if you don't click on anything else, again, really encourage you to hit up the Extra Life link, where you can either sign up and join me in the 24-hour of gaming next week, or you can donate to the cause. Again, I'm playing for Johns Hopkins, but you can link from there. You can find other people playing all across the country and probably the world. And if you want to donate to a certain children's hospital, there's probably someone playing for one that's in your neck of the woods too. And with that, I will bid adieu, and I guess thank you all very, very much for listening. And until next time, we can't say keep it steamy. That's the other one. Stay quirky, turn the gears, be a cog in the wheel. I don't know. We'll have to come up with something catchy. But thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you next time.